of all sorts of various sizes that we've had in many different locations. She has been a blessing. JiNan and I just was with JiNan. She just did a major intellectual property consortium or summit at her hometown of Raleigh-Durham, right there at Duke University. And she had some of the top intellectual property leaders in America, and internationally as well, all located in one place, as she began to share a vision of unity among those people, which is a very difficult thing to do, because in intellectual property, it's all about litigation, defending your own turf, and all that stuff. So to get people to actually flow as a team is a new concept to them. But JiNan was introducing that, and both myself and Luis Marquez, who become good friends with JiNan also down in Mexico, we went down to be with her. But more importantly, this summer, JiNan and Francis, who you've seen here, this is his second trip to be with us.
Yes.
They're going to be married on July 13th this summer. So that's very exciting, and there's just so many wonderful things are happening. And some of you may know JiNan, because JiNan's she's a regular participant in the morning prayer call. So she's on Gloria's on every day, but she's on almost every day, if not every day as well. And I encourage all of you to tell your friends about that call and join at 7:45 Eastern Standard or Eastern Daylight Time, whichever we're enjoying at this current time, every morning. And Gloria's been leading that up. And Gloria sure would like to train up some other leaders to handle a couple. Jenna's been leading up some of the calls also, which has been great, and we love having Jenna back with us as well. So let us welcome now, without any further delay, let us welcome JiNan Glasgow.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. It's always a joy to be here and to be sharing with the team. I feel like some people I see all the time, perhaps because of the prayer call, because when we're on it, we're really strongly connected, really fully connected, and everyone fully expressing themselves and the spirit in them. It's a beautiful thing. And thanks to my fiancé, Francis, for joining me here this weekend. Thanks. So we've heard a little bit this morning. I like to talk about creativity and innovation. For those of you who have heard me speak before, these are things that I'm always going to want to talk about, because it's why I wake up every day. It's part of how I was genetically coded to work with ideas and innovation and to help people turn them into reality and find true worth through doing it. Why are you guys here today? We were talking about that, I think, a little bit earlier, in inviting other people. How many of you are on the Deeper Life calls twice a month? I know I've heard some of your voices quite a lot. And the prayer call, how many people do the prayer call?
Once in a while.
Every once in a while.
How about this
That's great. A little up and down. Well, I think a lot of us are here. One of the reasons I'm here, of course, is to share and to connect and to grow. But I think all of us are also seeking something. In seeking to grow as part of the vine, we're seeking to express ourselves fully, and we're seeking to make connections. Maybe it's good to take a little poll around the room and see how we're doing today. Maybe one word. If you could just pick one word for how you're feeling right now, how would that be, Dan?
Blessed.
Gloria?
Very intimate.
Intimate. We're going around the room. Everybody's going to give me a word. Blessed. Full. Oh, you had a good lunch. Present. Good. Growing. Expectant. Matthew. One word. How are you feeling? Drained. Happy. Elson, how are you feeling? Blessed. Francis? Lucky. I feel lucky. Jenna? Grateful. Attentive. Anticipating. How are you feeling? Challenged. Content. Beautiful. How are you feeling? Late. Just kidding. Ginny, how are you feeling? Oh no, but happy. Kimberly, good, happy. One of the things that I like to talk about when I talk about creativity and innovation, of course, is words. And they start a little bit with self-awareness. I like how Kyle put out the 5 things, kind of those 5 stages that we go through. They all start with I. So if you don't know how it is with you, how is that I? If you don't have some self-awareness, it's kind of hard to invite other people in. It's kind of hard to even move down that list if you're not starting with I. That was just something that kind of hit me. So it's good that we're aware of ourselves and that we're able to express it, even if it's just with one word. It's good to be in touch with that and to be in the present. So often, whenever we are out, we're doing things, there's a lot of things that distract, and it's hard to be present. And it's hard to be quiet, and it's hard to be still. But unless we have that time and that space, it's also hard to be aware of what's going on. And then it's hard to create. So you can't really create when there's a lot of distraction going on. It does require some, I think, focus. One of the things I think I do really well is that I focus ideas to help transform things into reality really well, to help clients realize their worth. One of the things, we'll go to the next slide, please. One of the things, I think you guys have seen this before, that I always like to say, because I believe it, is I believe everyone has the power to create. And I think the first stage of that is to have the vision for it, to imagine it, to have the idea of something. We saw like a really beautiful book and presentation and puppets and toys that all started with ideas, some vision that came into being. Oh, thanks for coming to the front row. So I think when we start by imagining these things, we all want to make the most impact that we can with our lives. I also like how Kyle sort of quoted Covey by saying, start with the end in mind. Where are you going? Have the big picture is kind of what I call it. It's hard to put a puzzle together if you don't first have the big picture. So I think it's really important that we start imagining where we'll go, how big it will be. One of the things that I run into with clients when I'm helping them with their ideas, with their inventions, is that they usually start with whatever that thing is that's in front of them, the thing that they want to patent. They start with what they can see, with what's tangible. But the way that we create more value is by stretching it, abstracting it, making it bigger, kind of pulling some of the invisible into what's visible for them already, but starting with what they can see. I think that's kind of interesting. You guys know, of course, I'm a patent attorney. How many of you know about the patent system, about inventions? Yes, several hands. Well, I'll give you just kind of a thumbnail of it. The whole basis for the patent system was about sharing ideas, communicating ideas. How many of you know what an invention is? What is it, Kimberly?
Oh, something new that you create that no one else has created.
Right. It's got to be new. It's got to be the first thing. It's got to not be obvious to anyone else. But one of the things I like to think about, inventions are solutions to problems. So a lot of times it starts with a problem. It starts with a challenge. It starts with something that needs to be improved or fixed or corrected. Some people are maybe better at problem solving than others, but I think it's important to realize one of the reasons I like participating in the patent system is that it's about sharing ideas. It's an exchange. So Dan Stratton has always come to me early on about this concept of how we connect and how we exchange the gifts, the talents, the resources, whatever we have with each other, so that we all can be fully expressed and fully connected. That's kind of what the patent system is for, in a way. You exchange a complete disclosure of your invention, your solution, and you will pay some money, of course, and you will get back rights to keep others out and to fully use it, to be the only one. But when you tell other people about it, this is really the point of it, other people can build on it and improve on it. That's kind of cool. Frances has a good story about going out to lunch called the McDonald's story. So a lot of times people, when they're getting together, it's hard to come to a consensus, to reach an agreement. But in order to start, you have to start somewhere. So if you can't agree on where to go out to lunch, maybe you start with McDonald's. Because everybody's going to want to go somewhere else, and then you'll start getting ideas, right? So sometimes you just have to get started. How many of you have seen a $2 bill? How many of you have a $2 bill? What did you do with it when you got it? How did you get it?
I went to the reserve and they were selling it, and I bought some, and then I put them in different boxes.
You put them in a box to save them.
I collect.
You collect them. Great. Thank you. Who can tell me something else that's interesting or unique about a $2 bill and what you do when you have it? Why is it neat? Why would you save it?
Because it's scarce. It's not something that it's scarce. It's not, you can't get them as easily as you can $5, $1.
That's really interesting. And why is that? Do you know?
Because
Who's on it? Who can tell me? You can't tell me because you have one in your hand. Who can tell me the president who's on the $2 bill? Woo, sorry. Thomas Jefferson. There you are. That may be one of the reasons I like the $2 bills. Sounds like I'm in the Matrix now. Why I like $2 bills is because Thomas Jefferson is on it. He's the father of the patent system. Kind of cool, isn't it? So Thomas Jefferson set it all up. And on the back, this is, I think, one of the most beautiful bills. What's going on the back? Can anybody tell me? The signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? Here you go. Thank you. It's kind of neat, $2 bills. One of the things about it is people don't see them a lot, so you don't know what to do with them. It's kind of neat to hear what people do with them if you have one. Some people frame it. Some people save them. Well, it turns out there's kind of 4 different things that people do with them. And it can tell you a little bit about who they are and how they interact with each other. So one of the things you could do for fun, now that those of you who have one, since you already have a collection, you might fight it and try to go out and spend it. Go to a convenience store maybe or something. And why would you want to do that? To see what they'll do. So buy something that costs like $2 and give them a $2 bill. So there's going to be sort of 4 different responses to that. One of them is going to be to just take it, look at it, look at you, look at it, and probably go look for the manager, because what are you going to do with it? Right? People don't give that. Maybe they'll open the drawer to try to put it in. Where are they going to put it? There's no slot for a $2 bill, right? So it doesn't follow the rule. It's not set up. So people who tend to follow the rules, those that execute things, following the rules that are already there, are going to have to go ask the manager what to do because they don't have a rule for it. People who might look at it, see that there's no drawer, and then go, you know, this is kind of cool. I think I'm going to keep that. They're creators. They like new, different things. They like ideas. They want to keep them and have them. Frame it, put it in a safe place, something like that. But keep it for themselves. $2 in pocket, $2 in the drawer. You're fine. So creators work a little differently than executors, right? Who cares if there's a rule? You've never seen it before? You keep it. You make the rule, right? Another one is going to be trying to give it back to you and say, do you have anything else? Didn't you, do you have 5 or a couple ones or something? Those are refiners. Those are the people who want to sort of improve or remake the rules. They're negotiating back with you because that exchange doesn't work in their framework. And then the last type, which is a really valuable type, especially for creators, people who come up with new ideas and want to implement them, is an advancer. Who can tell me what the advancer does?
Gives it to the next person, next chain.
Okay, close. Who can tell me? What does the advancer do with the $2 bill?
It gets passed down to their children.
No, that's not what I'm looking for. Anybody else? And then I'll just tell you. No. I heard somebody say it earlier. I get to keep this one because you guys didn't repeat it. They just lift up the drawer and put it under, where you put the hundreds or the 50s or the checks, right? They're advancing and they're moving it on. This transaction is moving. So the point about the $2 bill, there's a couple things. First of all, it's unique and different just like you are. So fully express those things that are unique and different and beautiful. But also, to be fully expressed and useful in commerce and in activity of life, you have to connect with the right person to make that transaction happen, right? So if you're someone who's an executor, you might want to catch up with a refiner or an advancer, somebody who's making up the rules for you to follow. And that's great. It takes all types of people on a team. If you're a creator, you don't want to go to the refiner. They're going to give it right back to you and say, this won't work. Here's why this won't work, and try to shut it down. There's a role for that on a team. But if your goal is to really get your idea implemented and you're a creator, you want an advancer. You want somebody who's going to take it and put it where it needs to go to keep the transaction moving. So unique about a $2 bill is that it's exceptional, just like each one of us are. And then secondly, you've got to connect with people for that transaction to keep working, right? And remember the patent system and inventions too. Thanks for playing that game with me. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, who is that? It is me, yay. This is me taking out my first ever hole-in-one on a golf course. Thank you. It was a really exciting moment. I'm glad I got to share that. But one of the things about this that really fits well from our conversation today and in my deeper life is about having the big picture and having the vision. So before I could hit it in the hole, I had to stand on the tee box. How many of you golf at least a little bit or kind of know about it? Okay, so this was that doesn't count. This was 160 yards away, uphill. I could see the pin in the beautiful green. And it was at the back, kind of left side. There's some sand, there's some trouble around it. But I had to know which club to use to try to get the ball there, right? So I needed some expertise.
Sandwich, right?
For 160 for me, uphill, that distance feels like forever. Totally uphill. I used, why do you guys think I'm really great? It was a 5-wood. Now, a 5-wood gives you more power, but it's a little harder to control. But first I had to have the vision to know what's my target, what's my goal, where am I going? I'm going for that flagstick right there, and I'm going for the hole that's underneath it. Well, it turns out I couldn't even see the hole from where I was. So how could I possibly get it in? Because I had a flagstick. There was a flag planted there, and that's the target. And then I knew the right tools to get there. I had the vision well served. I was going for that. But I also had to execute the swing. And I had to believe that I could get it there. I had to have a faith, a belief that I could. I had so much faith that this was the year that I was going to get my hole-in-one, that I put my name on a list to win money. And also to pay money to other people if they got theirs. But it's more fun when you win because all the other people have to pay you money for winning the hole-in-one. But I've never had one. Turns out most people that we've talked to have never had one, even if they've played since they were a child. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. The more golf you play, the more likely it is to happen. But the other thing about it is that you do have to aim for the target. You have to have a target in mind, and you have to make your move so everything you're doing is going, the energy and everything you're doing is going for the target. So when you have an idea, a vision that you want to have become reality, and I'd love to say I called it at that. Francis actually called it right after I hit it. He said he thought it was going in. This actually also happened. I'm going to sort of put this out. The questions we said about my deeper life, what would a miracle look like? It happened on my birthday. Just less than 3 weeks ago, actually. So like a pretty fun day, right? But you have to set your eyes on the target first. You have to have the vision. I like to share this too. So we were talking about, and Kyle's not back yet, we were talking earlier, Kyle saying, you know, it's every one of these 5 things, they start with I and knowing yourself. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit about me. I asked you guys why you were here. This is the why I was telling you about earlier, why I get up every day. It is about sharing ideas. It's about making ideas be transformed into reality. I used to be an engineer. Now I have a new career. I'm a patent attorney. I also like teaching and doing lectures. I'm writing a book right now. A lot of that is about ideas becoming reality. This little circle thing, that's something I know about myself. It's my pattern for success. So it's kind of the how I do things that's really unique to me, just like the $2 bill is pretty unique. There's nobody else probably that does it quite the same way. But for me, the beginning is always I do have to have a vision. I have to imagine it. Once I can imagine it, it's almost real to me. But the work's not done yet. So that's not really good enough. So having an idea or imagining something, having a vision for the goal isn't enough. The next thing I do is share it. And the way I do that is I tell everybody about it. I tell the world. I mean, I tell everyone. I'll tell a story in a little bit that you guys have, some of you heard before, but it's just the way it works for me. It's the way when I have an idea that I want to become reality, it's the way it works for me. It's the pattern I follow. So I know if I'm in a certain stage of the pattern, I have a few more to go. So after I tell everybody, the next thing is, I'm part of a big family, one of 5 kids. I played team sports growing up, and I am now running my 3rd business, still active, Neo-Patents that you see up here. I team up. I pull a team together because, as Dan says, and I love it, to be fully expressed, you have to be fully connected. Anything great, anything that's really worth doing, I don't think usually it's one person who does it. And obviously, you guys have seen my puzzle piece in the corner. Kimberly Winfrey likes this a lot. But it's the idea of connecting. When you team up, when you have the big picture in your mind and you know that you have a piece and where it goes, and I'll quote Kimberly here, the piece has a destination, it has a destiny, it has a location, it has specific connections that let it form its part in the picture. And the way Paul says it, is that actually we are all part of one body, everyone with a different function. The joints are joined very strongly together so that they work well, right? So connections need to be strong connections and the right connections. So remember the $2 bill also. If you're going to be, if you are a creator and you're going to get your idea implemented, you need an advancer. Eventually you need a refiner, someone who will make the rules that other people can repeat, the executors. So it scales and it goes on. Kind of like what we're doing here with the rules, with the tools, the things that we're doing. The next thing I like to do in my pattern is to just roll up my sleeves and do it. That Nike, just do it. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to be involved. You won't see a manicure going on here. But I like that. I like getting my hands into it. And when I'm working in my main role, my main function as a CEO and a patent attorney, the way that I do that is I actually write things. I make words go together so that they are bringing the most value out of the idea, the invention. And the last thing is to see results. And kind of the way that I do that is to step back and make sure it's looking like the picture. I didn't actually have to see it go in the hole when I was on the tee, and in fact, I couldn't do it. But it was enough to see it was go in that direction. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. That's looking like it's right on target. And even if it's a little off, I know how to get it the rest of the way. But getting up there and seeing it at the end, it's kind of exciting. I am not a metrics person in terms of the numbers, the numbers, the numbers, the details. Matthew Deutsch probably is. He's an accountant. So he would be a good person on my team when I need somebody for that level of detail. So it's good to know who you are, that I. Kyle, I'm picking up on all the 5 I's. All starts with I. You need to know who you are and how that's going. And then who to team up with. You need the people not like you on your team to make your idea reality and make positive impact. The next slide, please. If you don't believe me, then probably you would maybe believe a famous author, Henry Chesbrough, published by Harvard University Press. He had a book called Open Innovation, and part of what he talks about is that most companies with inventions, with ideas that they want to make money with, that's what businesses do, they aren't the company that did the invention is not the right company to take it all the way to the most value most of the time. So you need to connect with other people to make the most worth, to create the most value, to do the most impact. You do need a team. The other thing that Chesbrough said that I thought was kind of interesting is even though companies may be creative, they may invent, they may do some impact, most of them only use if they know, because a lot of people don't inventory, how much of your talents, how much of your assets are you using? Most companies are using less than 25% of their patent assets. It applies to you guys too. How many of you guys are talented? Raise your hand if you're talented. I am talented. Everybody is talented. You're gifted. You have talents. Different ones, different amounts, different types, right? What happens when you don't use your talents? They diminish, they go away, they don't bring return. In fact, you might get fired, right? We know the story. And your talent gets given to someone else, whatever you had. So if you take your talent, your puzzle piece, how you connect, and you just hide it or bury it or put it away and don't use it, you're not making any impact. You're not growing. You're not living your calling, right? How many of you are talented? How many of you know what your best talents are? Like, what are you great at? How many of you are living that every day? How many of you want to be living that every day? So what's stopping you now? Does that sound like the next question we heard? I was paying attention. What's stopping you now? What do you need? What would a miracle look like to make that work? These things are real. Part of what I'm emphasizing today, even though the thing I love to talk about is creativity and innovation, it's also about the discipline of tools and using your talents. If you don't know what they are, you might want to start paying attention. How many of you know what this is? It's a notebook. And what's in it? Who said opportunity? It's blank pages, right? I mean, we heard this also from the storytelling. What's your story? If you're not paying attention to it, who will? If you don't know what you have, how can you use it? One of the things we know about people who are talented and who use their talents is they have confidence. We unpacked this word in the prayer call a few weeks ago. It means having faith in. Having faith in your talents. Having faith that if you're called to use your talents and you use them, you will win. You will be successful. If your picture isn't at the flag, but you're looking at the rough, or you're looking at in the golf course shot, if you're looking at the sand trap, you're looking at the trouble, where your attention is where you go. It happens all the time to me in golfing. If I'm thinking about the water, it's going in the water. If I'm visualizing the shot going over, it goes. It goes. Your ideas also go where you send them.
That's right. That's right. Good.
One of the other things that we talk about quite a bit, I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide. We do talk about talents and we do talk about calling. This is one of my favorite scriptures. Whoever asks receives. Whoever seeks finds. Whoever knocks, the door is open. So if you don't yet know your calling and you aren't yet aware of your talents, ask.
That's right.
people around you can help you see them sometimes if you can't. Dan is a great leader. He can see things in other people before they're there, before they're really manifest. Another thing you can do is ask. But if you ask a question and you're expecting an answer, you have to listen,
That's right.
right? And not only listen and keep doing other things, but you have to pay attention. Take a note. Write it down so that you remember it, so you can go back to it. Especially if it's an answer to a question you hadn't asked before. An answer that you weren't expecting. This is a great question. It kind of goes with what would a miracle look like. A lot of you didn't raise your hand that you were living your calling every day. Maybe you're just in a job that you are in, and there's that. But this is maybe a good question to ask. If you could do anything, if every job paid the same amount of money, what would you do? What would you wake up every day and do? What thing would you do? What work would you do? How excited would you be if you could wake up every day and do that thing that you wanted to do? People often sort of save up stuff like that for the weekend. It's a hobby or whatever, and that may be okay, but if what you really want to do is what you know you were born to do, if you can plant that flag in the ground and start going in that direction, start aligning things, line up where you're going before you move. Be sure it feels right. Does it match where you're going? Francis is probably laughing. That sounds like our golf coach. A little bit. And maybe it's interesting to ask the other question, what's the thing stopping you? If you can name it, you can control it. You can change it.
That's right. It's good. It's good.
There was a book that Francis referred to me actually by Dale Carnegie called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It was a really easy and fun book to read. I like reading a lot. But it was amazing to read. They could have renamed it maybe How to Not Have Stress and Have a Great Life. Because sometimes people don't think I worry. But how many of you have been anxious about something in the past week? Something been on your mind or worrying? I mean, Jesus says, don't be anxious about anything. What happens, according to Dale Carnegie in his book, is that when people are anxious and they worry and they carry it around and don't name it, don't write it down, it's too big. And any burden that's that big, even if it's small, that you're carrying every day, is going to weigh you down. You've got to set your burdens down. I mean, Yahweh tells us where to put them. But you can set them down. We choose to carry them. And when we choose to do that, it manifests physically as illness. The Mayo Brothers, the Mayo Clinic, most of you have heard of, the Mayo Brothers in their hospital said at any time over half of the people who were in their hospitals weren't there because they were sick first. It's because of emotional worry, stress, anxiety that happened first or that was still there. He has story after story about it.
That's right.
So if we could set that down, and that's what's interfering, if we can name it, I'm worried that if I don't do this job that I don't like, I won't have enough money to pay my rent and I'll be homeless. Write it down. It's the problem that you could have an inventive solution for. Next slide, please. Oh, wait, no. Sorry to back up. I wanted to talk about the last one. Thanks. Can you go backwards? Yeah. Okay, these are my kids, Gaetan and Rosa. Some of you have met them. Some of you haven't. They're a lot bigger than that now. They're both at least 5'4". But one of the things I like about this and their expression, they both did paintings one day. Look at their faces. Look, they're so proud of that. They had to have an idea first because they started out with a blank canvas. They had to choose colors. They had to have a vision for what they were going to create. If you're going to have have something that's physically manifest, you first have to imagine it and have the idea. And at the end, then you're proud of it. I love that because Rose is really holding her piece up. Gorgeous. But one of the things is, again, like the $2 bill, do it your way. Who cares if there's not a slot for it in the box? You don't fit in the box anyways. Authenticity is about doing it your own way. It's about being exceptional. It's about taking the inventory, knowing your talents, knowing your passion and what you want to do with it, and then moving ahead with it, imagining it, writing it down, telling people. One of the things about great leaders is they communicate well.
That's right.
They have a vision and they communicate clearly. And good leaders communicate the truth. And they check in to make sure people are listening. How do you pull a team together if you can't communicate it, if you don't have the words to do it with? Education and experience matters, of course, but how we interact matters the most in terms of making positive impact with ideas. The next slide. Some of you have heard this story before, so please indulge me and let me tell it again. This is an example of my pattern and how it worked for me. As part of an entrepreneur group, I took a trip to Japan in 2007. It was the beginning of April, end of March 2007. And I was in Japan, and it was just a blessed time. I took time off. I took a break. I was quiet. I did yoga. I prayed. I meditated. I journaled. And I had a vision at that time to go to Africa and help transform economies. And the first thing I thought was like, oh God, that's the last place I want to go. I was really afraid to go. So the first thing I did was say, well, if that's where I'm going, okay, but you have to take the fear away. And a few other things. What am I going to do when I get there? There's no patents going on in Africa. I'm a patent attorney. How does that make sense? Well, often our calling isn't really obvious, right? But once I thought, you know, this is it. There's a way. I just don't see the hole yet. I don't see where it's going, but I see the flag. I see the direction. I can see the lay of it. I followed my pattern. I started telling everybody. I mean everybody. So if you've got some good news, you tell everybody. If you have an idea that you really want to do, you feel called to do it, it's the thing you want to wake up and do every day. You're going to tell people about it. You're going to use words to communicate it. And the reason that that matters, because if I had just said, I have no idea what I'm going to do, this can't work. Do you hear how those words create that reality? It's exactly the opposite. This is my little story of how it works. I started talking with some other entrepreneurs. One of them in Boston said, you know, it's so interesting. I've just been working on a fund to invest in technology companies. We're looking at Ghana, Mozambique, and South Africa. I said, that sounds great. How can I help you? Here's what I can do. Here's my piece. How can I connect with this? Maybe it would have worked, maybe it didn't. It turns out it did work. Less than 6 months later, there was me on the ground in Ghana. We were visiting one of the tech guys' grandmother's village. It was really kind of cool. We got to see a lot of things, and I learned a lot, and I contributed a lot. It went both ways. It was an exchange. It doesn't just go one way. If it's a real connection, it's an exchange. Because otherwise, it's all flowing in one direction. It's just giving or it's just taking, and that's not sustainable. I love Pastor Dan. One of his other sermons online was about the fact that we are all loved, that you have to be loved. You first have to accept it and have it before you can give it. How can you invite people to my deeper life if your life isn't living the way you want? Well, because it's a process, right? But if you're on the journey, you're excited about it. It's no problem to tell people. You want to invite them. You probably don't even have to say anything. Because they're going to ask you. How many times have I told people, Dan, in front of the MDL call about like, hey, by the way, there's a prayer call every morning. The way that started for me was I wanted to ask for prayer. And so I called saying, you know, I need some help. Here's what I need. Will you pray for me?
Yeah.
And then I came back. And then I came back again. And then I realized, you know what? It's kind of cool to pray for other people. I'm pretty busy, and I charge a lot per hour, so I think my time is pretty valuable. Everybody's time is. But I kind of think I watch it pretty closely because I also have those 2 gorgeous kids, and I have Francis, and there are a lot of things I like to do, and I love my work. I never thought I'd have an hour and a half every weekday morning to do that call. I mean, if you had said, is there time for it? This was another exercise we did. I'll ask you guys to do it. You don't have to do it right now, but sometime in the next day or so, draw a circle. That circle is 24 hours. That's your day. How do you spend your day? I'm going to portion it for yourself, you know, exercise, time with the family, the time you're working, time you pray, time you read. I mean, it's maybe a little different, but pick a typical day. Now draw another circle and draw the way you'd like to spend it. What's stopping you from doing that? Where your treasure is where your heart is. Where you want your work to be, where you want your life to be, is where you'll invest your time. Everybody has only 24 hours a day. You will put your time where you want it to be. And if you start out, perhaps it's because you're drawn to it from a passion, or like the prayer call, I needed something. There's a natural interest in connecting and reciprocity to give back. What I found was suddenly, that was kind of one of the first things I want to do. Francis will probably attest. It's kind of busy in our house at that time of day. My 2 kids have to get ready for school. There's a lot of things going on, but it's almost every day that I start it that way. And what I found is it's changed me. It has transformed me. In a big way. My business has had the best year so far that we've ever had. Last year was 20% plus higher than the year before. And I've been doing the prayer call for like a year plus, some bit of time. I don't feel like I lost that time on the prayer call. It kind of gave me more. And thanks for letting me share that. That wasn't in my speech, except to say, like, where you put your time is where your target's going. If you aren't practicing all of these things that we're doing, you're never going to get it. And you're not going to get there. And if you know what a miracle looks like, you've got the picture. And if you have the picture, you have a path, you have a trajectory, you have a place to go, you have something to aim for. If you can put it in words. How many of you guys have done this? The little forms, they're in your book. I wasn't doing them for a while because I journal and stuff. I started doing this and my kids started wanting to do it. They're like, why are you doing that? Like, because I want to make sure I get these things done. I have some goals for today that I'm putting first. And they were like, wow, you can check that off, check that off, check. You know what else happened? They wanted to help me check some of them off. Some of mine is how many hugs I get every day, because I think emotionally that's a really good thing. So my son right now, he's like, let's get you 10 right now. I'm like, all right, we can check that off. Maybe tomorrow it'll be 20. When you can communicate your goals, other people want to help you reach them. Other people want to help you reach them. Successful people want to help you more. But you have to be able to communicate them. Okay, let's do the next slide. I'm going to tools now. The next slide, please. Thank you. This is the main tool I want to talk about. I realize I have maybe about 10 minutes or less. So it's about journaling. Who in here is journaling now? Again, I just want to see journaling, like once a week at least. Who's not journaling then? Okay. You're starting today. I pick you. You could do it on blank pieces of paper, but I like it when it's all together in a book because you know where it is. You can stick this in your pocket. Yeah. There's another young lady at the back who's going to start journaling today. Thank you. Will you pass that to her? If you're not putting things into words, there goes the matrix again. If you're not putting things into words, they'll never become reality. They just won't. How many of you have dreams? Or imagine anything? Or have an idea every once in a while? Write them down. If you don't care what they are, who's going to? You can't love your neighbor more than yourself. You can't help somebody if you're not helping yourself. Am I kicking people's butts too badly? I'm sorry.
You were so understated there. It was so perfect.
I think it's really important to journal. And a lot of people go, well, I don't really know how to do it. Here's how. This is for tools for you. A journal is a tool. It's one of your tools. You guys need to write. Just like reading a rhythm, you need to write it, write it, write it.
No, that's right.
Write something. The first thing is to raise your awareness of just the fact that you have ideas, visions, and dreams. And what are they? Imagine the miracle. You can use this forum as a great place to start, or use one of them. Breaks it down really well. I'm going to share a little success story. I did this on the prayer call the other day. Praise God. This is really great. And I've shared it with Francis, too. At the end of January, Dan, at one of the Sunday things I was watching online, said, hey, I'm challenging people. Who here wants to be free from debt? I was like, yeah, sign me up. I'd like that. Well, he said, in order to do that, you have to agree to these things. So we set a goal. There goes the, can you see the flag planting in the ground right there? The great leader, he's planting the flag. It seems far away, just like when I did my hole-in-one. But if you don't have something to aim for, you'll never get there. And if you aren't consistently executing and noting it, you won't get there. So since doing that, I started, just to do round numbers, I had almost $1 million in debt on my business. And as of this week, it's almost eliminated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That feels pretty good.
Feels good. Feels good.
It feels pretty good. And I'll tell you, at the beginning, I wasn't sure that was going to happen so fast.
Sure.
But I just made the intention. I increased awareness, and I set the intention, and the flag was planted. And then I started asking for how to do it. And Dan teaches how to do it. And some of it's just executing, guys. I'm a creator and an advancer. I do like to help other people get their ideas going, so maybe I'm more of an advancer, even though I know I'm creative. But you know what? Sometimes we all have to just execute.
That's right.
And these are things that really work. And in terms of my personal debt, it was over $1.2 million. And now it's less than $400,000.
That's amazing.
470, including our house.
Best year yet.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's really possible, but you first have to aim for the flag.
That's it.
It's really possible. It's really possible. I think, besides praying about it, it's good to meditate. To me, meditation is kind of like the other side of prayer. It's where we're silent, and we are just not thinking about things. We're just open to receiving. And you can label it whatever you want to. The other thing is pay attention to dreaming. I mean, I believe that Yahweh has always spoken to people in dreams. And I believe it still happens. And it's important to write it down. If you don't write it down, you'll forget it. Sometimes we also just get a little piece of it. It doesn't make total sense. But when you write the pieces down, go back and look for patterns. Look for patterns as part of it. I think the other thing is to just write it down without judging it. Because you don't know the answer yet, right? You're having ideas.
That's so good.
Just write it down.
That's right.
It's like brainstorming. There's no bad ideas here.
That's right. That's right.
The next thing is to be vigilant. That's like aware, awake, wake up. Wake up and pay attention to your ideas and to what's happening. Expect serendipity. People that you meet who help you on something. Learning something new that you didn't notice before. Taking it in, trying it out, making it your own. Serendipity is kind of like that you're on the way somewhere and something better happens, right? More than you're expecting, but you have to be watching it. Some people call it the bouncing ball. Like you can just watch it go by and be like, oh, okay. Where I come from, I like to play ball. If there's a ball, like it's coming this way, right? It's mine. I'm going to play with it. You have to expect it. And then looking for connections. I told you at the beginning, I believe it takes a team. Fully connected, fully expressed is how Dan likes to say it. I love it. Look for connections. When you're doing a puzzle, do you just like pick up each piece and put it together? Who's ever done that? Crazy, nobody has. Yes, right. You're really telling the truth. That puzzle was too easy for you. Get 10 pieces next time. You have to try things out, and they're not always going to work. And it's okay. Because you know what? You may notice you don't connect with a person, but you know who to connect them with. Sometimes it's about helping other pieces get together. It's like it's not always about me. A lot of the time it is, but not always. Right? Because we can be responsible for ourselves, but if other people are communicating to you what piece they have, you can connect them. And I kind of really like doing that, because I think it's part of how reality happens. Being interactive means plugging in. It means connecting. If you're on the vine and you're not interacting, you aren't getting nutrients and you're not bearing fruit. You have to be interactive. And again, a lot of this is about living your calling and making your ideas become reality. You have to be able to put words to it to make that happen. And I think really seek. If you're seeking, you're searching, you're driven. You're looking. You don't stop until you find it. But whoever seeks does surely find. But you have to seek first. And I think you follow the right path. You know you're on the right path in a way because obviously you have discernment. You're praying, you're noting it, you're writing it down. But you also know your talents and you know your passions. You know the thing that you're like, yeah, I get to do this today. And yeah, I get to do it with these people today. Follow that path. That's a good path. This feels right. It feels like it's on target. I'm sending the energy to the target. I'm not sending it down at the thing I'm just doing today. I'm going where I'm going, even if it's a difficult day. So idea journaling is, for me, I think the most important thing. But on the other side of ideas and inventing is also what we take in. How many of you like to read? Anything, right? Everybody can read, right? Do you know that if you read for just 1 hour a day, every day, you'll read a book a week? Most business books are less than 300 pages. It doesn't have to be business. It could be about music. It could be about art. It could be about teaching. It could be about anything. It could be a book in the Bible. But it could be just a book about where you're going, what you're going for. If you read 1 book a week for a year, you can have vacation. Okay, so 50 books a year. You're an expert in that space if you've been reading in your space of passion. You're an expert. You could write a book after that. If you can read, you can teach yourself anything. But if you're not reading, there's no new ideas coming in, right? There's no new information coming in. One of the things that we say sometimes around my office is you can only invent from what you know. The more you see, the more you know.
That's right.
The more you live consciously, the more your awareness and you're looking. God give us eyes to see that we know more, that we can invent more, that we can solve more problems.
That's right.
And what will happen then is you start going, wow, that looks a lot like what I saw over here.
That's right.
That could work. Things are a little easier. You'll get solutions faster. It's a cool trick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes that just happens. And sometimes you do have, epiphany. After getting my butt over to Africa and then coming back, I had an epiphany. It was one of the things of, hey, nobody patents there. Or there are hardly any patents there. Countries allow it, but companies don't care enough about the economies yet there. They're just not big enough. It's a business decision. But what that means, I don't know that I could ever have thought of this. I mean, by the grace of God, I just had the epiphany. Then that means patents keep people out of a space, but at some point they all go into the public domain. So what that meant was, wherever patents are not, people are free to use all of what's been taught and disclosed. Patents are teaching documents, inventive solutions to problems.
Right.
So all of a sudden, what a gift and cool thing that is. Instead of facing down like this economy is more difficult or these are my barriers to entry, someone who's an entrepreneur in Ghana, a tech entrepreneur, can be like, in Mexico, I talked, sharing this, Luis Marquez said, bring this to Mexico, we need it. We've been working on this, or we have several clients there. It means they can say, wow, it's an advantage to be here.
That's right.
It's a gift, it's a resource. We can do things faster and better without investing in the R&D. It's been done. We'll just do that. And oh, by the way, if you're a creative person, then you start going, hey, that solution could work over here, and then I'll combine this other thing with it, and that's even better. 98+% of all patents are new combinations of things that are known.
Right.
They're improvements. That's the whole point of the system. That might be too geeky for you guys, but it turned the whole thing upside down to say, like, changing where you are changes your perspective. Sometimes it's good to get out and go. Don't just stay at home. Get out and come here. It's good to move to a different place. The perspective, the view is different. The more you see, the more you know. The more you can invent, the more you can create and connect and make positive impact. I thank you so much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for JiNan? I don't know. There it is. Do you have a question for JiNan at this point? Anybody? All right.
Could you come and live with me for a week?
The question was, could you come and live with her for a week?
That's
This
kind
is
of
Ginny.
forward. I'm already engaged, but I might visit. Thank you.
Yeah, you didn't hear the part that I edited.
Oh.
You're looking good. Could you come and live with me for a week? I'm teasing you, Ginny. That was...
Actually, I will say thank you so much for the tools that we have and some of these things that I wasn't documenting so much. I started realizing I was getting out of shape. Dr. Braverman probably could have yelled at me 6 months ago or something. So I started writing down that every day part of my physical life is I want to do some exercise. If I'm writing it down, I'm going to try to do it more than if I just think it. So these tools really work, not just in the debt thing, but also in your life thing. Every part of it. Don't skip a block or one of those columns. Go with it with every part, writing it down.
That's right. Janice has a question.
What am I journaling? I can suggest.
Right, but they can't hear you.
Okay. So there's not a right or wrong thing for journaling. The idea journaling was about ideas. You get an idea about something, you're like, hey, you know what? I'm really having a great day. What did you do that day? Will you find yourself in a happy, great place? Why? What's happening? It could also be that you wake up and you're like, I had this dream about whatever, and just write it down. But it could also be about a problem, because remember, inventions are solutions to problems. So Naming a problem, writing it down. What are you worried about? What could you do about it? Starting to answer the 5 questions for yourself. What would a miracle look like for me today? Just write that down. It can be about anything. Sometimes I keep a prayer journal that's different from a regular journal, where I write down things that we pray on the prayer call, or a word that comes. And that's beautiful too, because then you can see how prayers are answered. Ginny and I talked on the phone several months ago, and she said, you know, I had stopped journaling. I started doing it again, and it was so cool to look back and see things that were answered. And the joy of that and the reinforcement of it, it makes you have more confidence, more faith in. So journal anything and everything. Good question.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
I enjoyed you.
Thank
I just
you.
wanted to say that today, on my way here, is just so funny. That's why when you gave me the $2 bill, I got excited. On my way here, I had came by the train. And so while I was on the platform waiting for the next train to come, there was a young lady, it was like a little store part inside the subway. And this lady, she went up to the man and she said, excuse me. She said, do you have any $2 bills? So he said he didn't understand her at first, so he was giving her $2. So she said no. So she went inside her bag and she got out a $2 bill and she showed him. She said, no, I mean like this. So he said, oh, no, I don't have any. So I know I have had $2 bills in the past, but it's been like a long time. And so I observed it, and I was saying to myself, now, if he gives her a $2 bill, I'm going to ask him, can I have one? But I saw that, and it just like stuck in my mind for a minute, and I went on about my way. And I get here not knowing that I desired that $2 bill, and the Lord just blessed me to get it through you. So that is amazing. And the other thing I want to say about the journaling, I don't always journal all the time, but what I do journal is like sometimes I get songs, sometimes I get poems, sometimes I get sermons, like things out of the Bible, like I'll say, oh wow, I could, do something with that. But I just want to say that journaling, I do find though, whenever I do, do it for whatever reason, a lot of times if you have a problem, it's like dissecting the problem because you're writing it out. Then you can get the inspiration through the Holy Spirit to see the solution. So journaling really is a healing, another way of healing yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, everybody. Oh, Francis, you have something.
You mentioned that when you're talking about the $2 bills, that it's when you're building a team, the creator should connect with the advancer, and that it's bad when the advancer connects with the rule maker, or I forgot the what? The refiner. Yeah, it's bad. What I want to ask you is, what happens when 2 creators are on a team and there's a conflict?
Oh.
How does one walk away or deal with that, or is there a rule?
Oh, no, that's a good question. But what often happens is nothing will emerge, like you won't get the impact from it, because there is a natural process that always happens when there's an idea that becomes a product or a service or just makes reality. There does have to be like an idea gets advanced, and then there are rules or whatever structure put around it so that it can exist and be implemented, and then someone has to execute that. So it spells care, C-A-R-E. It does have to get its care all the way through. So if you only have 2 creators and they're disagreeing, what most of the time creators do love to hang out together because they love ideas. So it'll be like, hey, I just thought of this. Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? And it'll just be this like tornado of ideas. And it can be destructive, and people's ego often gets in the way. That's why the advancer is pretty helpful. And this is one thing I realized as I learned about this was that's more of what I am than a creator. I do have creative ideas, but I'm more about like things like making their implementation, like making the bridge between people. So 2 creators aren't going to advance anything most of the time. You've got to have, it's rarer to find that person who will bridge over to the rule people, because creatives are just like, wow, yeah.
But in that case, what I would normally do as an advancer, because I'm an advancer like JiNan, I would take those 2 creators, I'd split them up, and I'd build teams around them. Because I just wouldn't let them argue, especially if they're good. and I would just split them up. But I'd also remind them, would you stop hanging out with creators? You got to be looking for refiners. But creators don't like refiners. So they get into a room with a refiner, and the refiner's like, I can't do that. I can't,
It won't work.
And so a lot of times you got to hang out with advancers, mainly, because the advancer will encourage you, and if you're a creator, I think you are probably, you encourage you, and then they'll translate, because advancers are generally not put off by refiners. Well, let me just say this. When advancers get good at what they do, they really appreciate refiners.
Well, you need all parts.
Yeah, but advancers initially kill refiners because they want to push things as fast as possible, and refiners want to slow it down, which they need to do to execute.
Right. Everybody has their role, but yeah, it just won't go anywhere if there's only 2 creators in the
Right.
room.
Or 2 refiners.
So mixing
or 2
up the
executors,
team, yeah.
or 2 advancers.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Awesome. Let's take 5 minutes. We're going to break here a little bit, and just because we're going to give Dave a chance to set up, Pastor Dave, but come right back because we're in for a really nice treat with Pastor Dave as well. So it's very good. But go to the bathroom now, not while he's speaking. Praise the Lord. And let's turn the AC on. I'll do that. I know how to do that.